Imagine holding a single silver coin that could buy an entire mansion, a fleet of luxury cars, or change a family's future forever. In 2013, one example of the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar sold for more than $10 million, becoming one of the most valuable coins ever sold. Experts believed it may have been among the very first silver dollars struck by the United States Mint, making it a direct connection to the birth of the nation itself. To most people, it looks like an old piece of silver with a worn portrait, but to historians and collectors it represents the moment America transformed from a revolution into a functioning country with its own money and identity. Somewhere in a forgotten collection, an inherited estate, or an old family box, another valuable example could still exist. That possibility is exactly why this coin continues to fascinate the world more than 2 centuries later. The year was 1794, and the United States was still a young republic trying to prove that it could survive. The Constitution had only recently taken effect, and the new federal government was establishing institutions that would define the country's future. A national currency was not simply about commerce. It was about independence and credibility. Foreign coins from Spain, Britain, and other nations still circulated widely because Americans lacked enough domestic coinage. The government needed a symbol that declared to the world that the United States could stand on its own. Only 2 years earlier, the Coinage Act of 1792 had authorized the creation of a national mint and a standardized monetary system. Building that system was far more difficult than writing it into law. Machinery was primitive, skilled workers were limited, and the young Philadelphia Mint struggled with technical challenges that affected the quality of the earliest coins. Those difficulties explain why many 1794 flowing hair silver dollars show weak strikes, unusual details, and distinctive die characteristics that collectors study today. At the same time, international trade depended heavily on silver dollars because they were trusted in commerce around the world. Producing an American silver dollar was therefore both an economic necessity and a political statement. Every coin struck announced that the United States intended to participate in global trade as an independent nation. The design itself reflected optimism, featuring Lady Liberty with flowing hair, symbolizing freedom rather than monarchy, while the eagle on the reverse represented national strength. Every surviving example carries the story of a country still finding its place in history. One of the most famous varieties is known by specialists as the Bowers-Borchardt 1, often called BB1. To identify it, carefully examine the placement of the date and the relationship between the stars and Liberty's portrait on the front, along with the arrangement of leaves beneath the eagle on the reverse. Tiny differences in these positions separate it from later die pairings. This happened because each working die was individually engraved and aligned by hand, creating subtle differences every time new dies were prepared. In heavily circulated condition, an authentic example can still command hundreds of thousands of dollars, while high-grade mint state pieces have sold for several $million depending on preservation and pedigree. Another important variety is identified through the unusually weak strike that appears on many surviving examples, especially around the center of Liberty's hair and parts of the eagle on the reverse. Instead of assuming the coin is damaged, collectors recognize that these areas often resulted from inadequate striking pressure and limitations in the early minting equipment. The presses of 1794 struggled to force metal fully into every part of the dies because the silver planchettes and machinery were difficult to manage. Even worn examples displaying this original striking characteristic can reach values from well into 6 figures, while exceptional mint state examples with strong eye appeal can reach several $1 million at auction. A third highly desirable feature involves distinctive die cracks and advanced die states. Look carefully around the lettering, stars, and portions of the rim for raised lines that are part of the metal itself rather than scratches cut into the surface. These raised lines formed because the steel dies developed fractures after repeated use, and every subsequent coin recorded those cracks permanently. They are essentially fingerprints of the minting process and allow specialists to reconstruct the sequence in which coins were produced. Examples with identifiable advanced die states can attract substantial premiums, with circulated coins often valued in the hundreds of thousands of dollars and superior mint state pieces, achieving prices that may climb into the multi-million-dollar range when combined with outstanding originality and historical significance. Finding a genuine 1794 flowing hair silver dollar is extraordinarily difficult, but collectors still improve their chances through smart searching rather than luck alone. Study estate auctions and inherited collections where families may not fully understand the importance of early American coins, because remarkable discoveries occasionally emerge from long-forgotten holdings. Spend time at major coin shows and dealer tables learning to recognize original surfaces, die characteristics, and natural aging instead of focusing only on labels, because knowledgeable collectors sometimes identify overlooked varieties before anyone else notices them. Finally, examine old collections of 18th and early 19th century silver coins, rather than searching only for a single date, because the people who saved one early American coin often saved several, and the next extraordinary discovery may be hiding beside other forgotten pieces, waiting for someone who knows exactly what to look for. Next, we have another rare coin. Imagine discovering a single silver dollar that could instantly make you a multimillionaire. One example of the famous 1804 draped bust silver dollar has sold for more than $7 million at auction, earning it the nickname the King of American Coins. The strange part is that despite carrying the date 1804, experts know these legendary coins were actually struck decades later as diplomatic presentation pieces, making them one of the greatest mysteries in American numismatics. Their rarity, history, and controversy have turned them into objects that museums fight to display and collectors spend lifetimes chasing. Somewhere in an old collection of forgotten family inheritance, or a mislabeled estate holding, an important early American coin could still be waiting for someone who recognizes its significance. At the beginning of the 19th century, the United States was still establishing itself as a stable nation. President Thomas Jefferson was leading a country that had recently doubled its territory through the Louisiana Purchase, creating enormous opportunities and equally enormous financial challenges. Commerce depended on trusted silver coins, yet precious metals often flowed overseas because their bullion value exceeded their face value. This shortage forced the government to rethink coin production and the role of the mint. In 1804 itself, the Philadelphia Mint was operating under difficult conditions, balancing limited resources with the growing demands of a young nation. Ironically, no silver dollars bearing the date 1804 were actually produced for circulation during that year. The legendary coins carrying the 1804 date were created decades later, beginning in the 1830s. When the United States prepared elegant proof sets to present as diplomatic gifts to foreign rulers. Mint officials mistakenly used the final date from earlier records, creating coins that looked like products of 1804, even though they were struck much later. That historical misunderstanding transformed an ordinary date into one of the rarest and most valuable coins in the world. The first and most famous variety is known as the Class I original. Look carefully for deeply mirrored proof surfaces, exceptionally sharp details throughout Liberty's hair and the eagle, and a perfectly executed strike that reflects presentation quality rather than circulation production. This version exists because the Mint specially prepared diplomatic gift sets using polished dies and carefully handled planchettes. Since only a tiny number survive, an authentic example is worth millions of dollars, even in its normal preserved condition. And specimens in outstanding proof quality have realized prices from roughly $4 million to well over $7 million, depending on provenance and market demand. Another important variety is known as the Class II restrike. Specialists identify it by examining the reverse lettering and details around the eagle, along with evidence that certain design elements were altered during later die preparation. These pieces resulted from Mint employees using modified dies to create additional examples, after the original diplomatic issues had been produced. Genuine examples are extraordinarily rare and highly controversial, with values generally reaching several $1 million for authentic pieces, regardless of preservation, because nearly all known specimens remain in collector-grade condition. The third major variety is the Class III restrike. Careful examination of the reverse, especially around the lettering and die characteristics, reveals differences that separate it from the earlier Class I pieces. These coins were created when previously altered dies underwent additional modifications before striking more examples. The changes left distinctive diagnostic markers that specialists use for authentication today. Authentic class 3 examples regularly command prices in the multi-million-dollar range, while even damaged genuine specimens would still represent an extraordinary financial discovery because of their extreme rarity. Although finding an authentic 1804 draped bust silver dollar is one of the most difficult challenges in collecting, smart searching offers better odds than blind luck. Spend time studying major state auctions and old family collections assembled generations ago, because valuable early American coins sometimes remain unidentified among inherited possessions. Attend large coin shows and learn the diagnostic features from reputable specialists instead of relying only on labels, since knowledge allows collectors to recognize important varieties before others do. Finally, examine collections of early proof coins, diplomatic presentation medals, and 19th century cabinet collections rather than searching only for a single date, because the people who owned historically significant American rarities often preserved multiple treasures together, and the next remarkable discovery may be sitting beside coins that everyone else overlooks. Next, we have our last rare coin. Imagine finding a single penny worth more than a luxury house. That is exactly what has happened with exceptional examples of the 1909 Lincoln cent, with pristine mint state specimens selling for tens of thousands of dollars and some of the rarest versions bringing well into six figures at auction. Countless people have overlooked these coins because they believed an old penny could never change their lives. Yet one tiny copper coin, small enough to disappear in a pocket, has become one of the most desired treasures in American collecting. Its value is not just in the metal, but in the story it tells about a nation entering a new century while honoring one of its greatest presidents. Somewhere in an inherited collection, an old coin album, or a forgotten family jar, another valuable example could still be waiting. The year was 1909 and America was transforming at an incredible speed. Factories expanded, railroads connected distant cities, and industrial growth was changing everyday life. The country wanted symbols that reflected a modern nation rather than the traditions of the 19th century. That desire reached the United States Mint, where officials decided to replace the familiar Indian head cent with an entirely new design. The year also marked the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Instead of placing an abstract image of liberty on the nation's smallest coin, the Mint made the historic decision to feature the portrait of a real American president. It was a bold move that broke with long-standing tradition and immediately attracted public attention. The design by Victor David Brenner represented not only Lincoln himself but also a nation looking toward the future while celebrating its past. Another important influence was the growing confidence of the San Francisco Mint, which supplied coins to the expanding western United States. Coins bearing the small S mint mark became symbols of that western production, and collectors soon realized that some of these issues were far scarcer than their Philadelphia counterparts. What began as ordinary pocket change would eventually become one of the most famous Lincoln cents ever produced. One of the most important varieties is the standard 1909 Lincoln cent. Look directly below the date on the front of the coin, where a small S mint mark should appear. The mint mark must show the correct shape, placement, and style consistent with genuine examples because many counterfeits have altered Philadelphia coins by adding an S. This variety exists because the San Francisco Mint produced a relatively limited quantity compared with later Lincoln cents, making surviving examples highly desirable. A heavily circulated authentic coin often sells from several $100s to well over $1,000 depending on condition, while attractive mint state examples commonly range from several $1,000s to tens of thousands of dollars. Another important variety involves repunched mint marks. Carefully examine the S under magnification for traces of an additional underlying impression or unusual extra curves around the mint mark. This happened because mint workers occasionally punched the mint mark into the die more than once after the first impression was misaligned. Authentic examples with recognized repunched mint marks usually command premiums above ordinary pieces, with circulated coins often reaching into the thousands of dollars and high-grade mint state examples bringing several thousand to well over $10,000 depending on the specific variety and certification. A third sought-after variety includes significant die cracks and advanced die states. Inspect the areas running through the lettering, the date, or Lincoln's portrait for raised lines that are part of the metal rather than scratches cut into the surface. These formed because the steel die developed fractures after repeated use, causing every subsequent coin struck from that die to record the same raised feature. Well-documented examples can sell for meaningful premiums, with circulated pieces often worth hundreds to several $1,000s depending on the severity and rarity of the die state, while exceptional mint state examples may bring many thousands of dollars when combined with outstanding preservation. If you hope to find one of these coins today, spend time examining old family collections and estate sales where generations saved pennies, without realizing their future value because discoveries still happen. Learn to inspect every 1909 Lincoln cent with a magnifying glass before dismissing it, paying special attention to the mint mark and its authenticity, instead of relying only on the date. Visit major coin shows and dealer inventories where large groups of early Lincoln cents can be carefully compared, because knowledge and patience often allow collectors to identify valuable varieties that others overlook. In the next video, instead of simply looking for another rare date, you will learn how to accurately grade your own coins and recognize the small differences between circulated, about uncirculated, and true mint state examples, because understanding condition can mean the difference between a coin worth a few $100s and one worth many thousands.